Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. So in this video I'd like to give you guys an update on this jade plant here. This is the jade plant that I've been trying to fuse from several small cuttings into one trunk. Now I've done a few update videos in the past. It's been a very long process. It's been probably about 3 or 4 years in total, and the first few times I tried it the stem didn't completely form together, I think because the bark was in the way. So in the last video I cut away the bark and sandwiched it back together. Now I did do another video where I untied it and retied it and see if it succeeded, and unfortunately it didn't. Now I managed to lose that video file somehow. I've not managed to find it again. So there was another video between the last one and this one. I never managed to upload it and edit it. So basically what happened in that one is I pulled the sections of bark apart. I think there was too many stems to really get a good connection, so they just didn't seem to fuse properly. Also, I think there was a bit too much movement, and they just didn't succeed. So this time I've done it again with the 3 main ones at the bottom, using the same technique, basically slicing off the material on the stem, fusing them together by tying them really tightly together with twine, and then just allowing them to grow to see if they'll fuse. Now this works well in many other plants. I don't know if it works well in jade plants, but I'm just experimenting to see how it works. But I also wanted to try another type of graft to see that if that would work. Maybe just fusing them together by touching the 2 cambium layers isn't the way to go with jade plants. So I tried another type of graft, which is up here at the top. Unfortunately, the footage of me doing the graft is now gone, because that was part of that video. But it was basically this top section. I got 2 of the stems. What I did is I cut a notch in each one, and I've just kind of slotted them together. If you can imagine the stems were like this, I cut a notch in each stem and I just kind of put the 2 stems like that together and then tied them together so that there's a lot more contact space for hopefully for the graft to take. So what I'll do in this video is I'll untie these and see if it succeeded. This will probably be the last video in my fusing of jade plants videos. I'm not too sure if it is going to work. All the other attempts I've tried so far have failed for various reasons. I know it does work well with other plants, such as my my fuchsia plant that I did years ago, and also some of my dahlias and other plants that I've grafted in the past. But I just don't know if it works on a succulent stem like a jade plant. If it does, it'll be interesting, and if this does succeed today, I might try some more experiments. If it doesn't succeed today, I'll probably not do any more fusing of stems, because it's just, well, or at least the technique I'm doing doesn't work. But I might try some other grafts with jade plants where I maybe craft a few different types of jades together. I've got a few different varieties now. I'd like to have them all growing on the one plant. I think that would be quite interesting. So for now I'm just going to start off with the top one. It's easier to pull apart the bottom stems if the top one's done first. So I'm just going to see if that one's taken. That's the one I've got the most hope for because of the type of graft I did. Before I do it though, I'm just going to remove a few of these side branches just so you can see a bit better what's happening. So that's the side branches now removed. Now I'm just going to be very careful and try and cut this off with the scissors. Try and hopefully not damage the stems too much or snap them in the process. So there are the 2 stems there. Now it's looking hopeful that there might be a graft that has actually taken. It's not very strong. You can see here there's a bit that's pulling away. I would have hoped that would have grafted in as well. But the 2 main bits in the middle, they do seem to be grafted. There's a little bit of flex, but I can feel they are secure. So I think that graft is a success. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to cut off this side section here. I'll then allow all the nutrients that would have gone up into this section here, and then in the future I'll cut off this stem here, and if this section on the left can live on the section lower down on the right rootstock, then it will have been a successful graft. So I'll remove this section here, and then I'll also remove some of the top growth from this one, just because it's actually very tall and I'm worried that with the weight and it moving around it will actually snap off. So I want to just remove some of the top growth here, because until that graft is a bit stronger, I'm worried it could easily snap itself off. So that's the graft. I'll turn around and see what the back of it looks like as well. That's the grafted section. I don't believe it's a very good graft, a very strong graft, but it does actually seem that it probably has grafted. So I'll leave that for now. What I will do though, to help this, to encourage this root system to take over the top section as opposed to this one. I'm going to tie some thread around this just to restrict the sap flow. What that will do is that make the plant prioritize this stem and make it more likely that it will take its nutrients from this one instead of that one. And then once this one has strengthened up a bit more and I know it can take the weight, I'll completely remove this one and then I'll know it's 100% grafted. So I'll now go ahead and take off the bottom section to see if the 3 stems have grafted. There's no way of telling really, just looking like this. I really need to take off the bindings and then we'll know for sure. So far it's looking good. Now these might just be stuck together with friction, I don't know, so I'm just going to very carefully try pulling them apart and see what it's like. But I actually think I might have finally succeeded in fusing the stems together. You can see especially here there does actually seem to be a bit of bark which bridges across that gap there, and they seem to actually be fused. So it looks like after 3 or 4 years of attempting this, it's finally succeeded, and I have actually managed to fuse together these 3 stems. So it's been a long journey. I'm glad that you've all been able to watch me do this over the last few years. I was quite worried this again would be a failure because it had failed in the past, but it has finally worked and I've actually managed to fuse these 3 stems together. I know there's quite a few other people who have done this as well. After watching my video, please let me know how your results have been. Now I'll just mention a few things which I think could be done to improve this further. So if any of you are doing this to try and fuse together stems quickly to get a wider stem faster, I think my exact technique has definitely not achieved that. I have had plants which are the same age as this and they're much thicker stem just from an individual plant. The reason being the technique I've used, using the twine, it really constricts the sap flow. So as soon as the plants start to try growing and expanding, they really get constricted against that rigid twine and they can't expand anymore. That constricts the sap flow and really slows down the growth. So I think this would work quite well probably with something that's slightly elastic or expandable, so something like a rubber band, or if you have any grafting tape, you can get grafting tape which is a bit of flex in it. I think that would work much better. It should be able to graft a little bit quicker, and also because it has that flex, the growth should be a lot faster, and so you should be able to get results in maybe 6 months or a year instead of the several attempts that I've tried with this one. So in summary, if you want to fuse jade plant stems together, what you need to do is remove lots of that bark layer to reveal the cambium so that it will stick together. You also need to wrap it together nice and tightly, not too many stems. I think the problem with too many stems is it's so fiddly and the stems can easily snap. 3 stems works quite well, 2 stems also works. If you use that kind of technique you have to have of grafting I have here, that probably works slightly better. But you won't get such a nice fused pattern. The other thing you need to do is probably look after the plant a bit better than I've looked after it. I've just had it in this small plant pot the whole time. I should have ideally had it in a slightly larger plant pot, and then I probably would have had a little bit faster results. But the main reason mine was slow was that constriction from the twine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove all this lower growth. This lower growth is going to take away from the energy from the main upper sections. I've also cut loads of the stem off because it was so top heavy without the string. I was worried the graft would break, so it looks really ugly right now, but I know this will sprout and it will look fine in a few weeks time, especially once I start retraining in the new branches. But whenever you cut jade plants hard, they can look really weird, but they normally resprout really fine. And because I've taken off all this tight restriction from the trunk, this should grow quite nice and quickly now. What it's been doing is sending up all these bottom shoots to try and bypass that restriction, so the energy from the roots can go straight out past that restricted point. What I would do now is remove all these lower shoots. All that growth can occur in the middle here, allow a decent sap flow, and I should get good growth. So I'm glad this has worked. Because it has worked, I'll probably try a few more techniques in the future. I keep you guys updated with the fusing of the jade. Maybe I can get some interesting looking plants. What I think would be quite cool is maybe if I had 2 stems coming up to 1 stem. I think that would look quite interesting. As a technique to get a thick stem quickly, which is why I first started this, I don't think it's a very good technique. But to get unusual plants from a jade plant by fusing the stems together, I think this is definitely a viable technique and could produce some interesting bonsai or interesting jade plants in the future. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in another jade plant video soon, where I'll be trying out some new fusing techniques and some grafting techniques.